Hi, this is Larry Greenblatt. I want to do a really quick overview of PKI. All right. When we look at public key infrastructures and the information security controls that they bring to us, most people think of confidentiality, but as Peter Diamandis so eloquently spells out in his books, we are moving from a time of scarcity to a time of abundance. I know the news tries to make things look worse than it is, but whatever the case is, we really do have enough to go around and be creating more and more in so many things. So when we're worried about information security and there's not enough water for both the mountain people and the valley people, then confidentiality is very, very important. But when we're collaborating, it's like, I just want to make sure that the water that the mountain people brought here is still good, then integrity and availability are much more important. So PKI can't give us availability. That's where cloud comes in. But for confidentiality, we can use PKI, but it's much more about integrity today. And that's how like blockchain technologies work. So as a Star Trek fan, many of you might know that I am a big Star Trek fan, and I consider the ISO the Federation test. And it's very important to us, especially in PKI, because when we look at public key infrastructures, by far theirs is the most prevalently used. That's how you identify this website. You're looking at their ISO X.509 certificate. That's how you're certain that you're talking to the identity you think you are. Yeah. So PKI refers to what I call aisle 2 in my crypto mart or my menu. I always say my students do not have to be cooks. These are engineers. No, my students, CISSPs are more like waiters. You have to understand, well, first of all, how to talk to customers, what they want, and help them understand the menu. So you have to understand the menu. Today, whatever PKI encryption technology you're using, you're probably encrypting the data, the contents, it's sometimes called envelope encryption, with AES 128 or 256. If it's ISO approved, if it's Federation, email, whatever, that's how it's done. This website is probably done that way. The integrity today is checked. It should be with SHA 256 or stronger, nothing weaker than that. But PKI really refers to how do we share those symmetric keys and how do we sign the authenticate the hash. So again, PKI is about identity management. You create private public key pair. Most people think of the RSA key pair, right? The key pair to identify with a person. And then if I want to make sure that person sent it, then that ID will use their private key to encrypt the hash. If I want to make sure that that ID is the only one who can open up the envelope, then I encrypt the key, the symmetric key, with Bob's public key, right? So now elliptical curve is far more efficient. We're going to see that for some reason, even the ISC square who knows that really teach classes. They don't practice all the time, but they preach. And we'll talk a little bit very quickly about the fears of quantum attacks. Now, the first step in any development life cycle, this is so true in security. As a hacker, I would tell you, if you get this wrong, it doesn't matter how strong your locks are. Because if I can get you to believe I'm the president of the company, it doesn't really matter how strong your firewall is, right? So we need PKI is to validate that identity, their credentials, right? There are digital credentials. And again, it's an ISO standard that's allowing you to look at this website. It's a standard currently updated in 2020, 9549. And here is the ISO's standard certificate that they are using. So that standard is for their X.509 certificates. This is their X.509 certificate. So the ID ISO.org www is identified with an RSA public key. Right? Now, I could create private public key pairs myself. Here's a very fun tool to play with. If you ever see a Cleopatra, free download, GNU. And I can create these and sign them myself. Or if I'm going to get them for the Federation, I've got to have a certificate authority sign them. If I sign it myself, I'm doing like PGP. It's like the company ID card. This proves it's Larry to the people in the company, but not around, a federated ID. So that's how you trust that it's whatever YouTube because of their federated ID. And I use elliptical curve whenever possible. Why would I go to RSA? And here's why. when you look at the strength, that we've had these options for a long time. We measure the strength of a key and how many bits it is. If it was 1 bit long, there'd be 2 possible keys. Yeah, I wonder if it's this one or that one. So with 128 bits, it's pretty strong, and that's AES symmetric things are measured that way. But RSA, because only prime numbers work, you can't. Oh no, you can't use that number, not a 4. Nope, throw that out. 6 can't be used, only prime numbers. You need a much wider key space. Elliptical curve does not have that problem. Elliptical, or that limitation. You only need double. So an elliptical curve, a key of 512 bits, which fits in 1 IP packet on the internet, would be like, 15,000 bits, and they don't make that for RSA. The largest RSA key, I think, is still 4,000. Right, so we really want to get away from RSA. And yeah, so there's the IC squared using themselves. I just did this today. Yeah. And it's a 204 8-bit key where Google, they're using a elliptical curve at 256. It's much stronger. It's, bigger isn't always better. Larry, what about quantum computing? I hear that's going to break the internet. First of all, it only affects the asymmetric algorithms. It only affects RSA and Diffie-Hellman, if it remembers what that was, it first key agreed protocol, and elliptical curve. NIST has been well aware of this. They're in round 3. There's a signing algorithm called Krista's lithium that's up there. So I'm hoping that'll get it as a Star Trek fan. But if you want to know more, I love Sabine Hassenfelder. If you like Neil deGrasse Tyson or any of these physics shows, she's awesome. So watch that video. Don't fall for the quantum hype. But either way, it's not going to bring anything. All right. So remember, what is the primary use of an X.509 certificate? For identity management, to prove that it is YouTube or Bob, right? Why are symmetric algorithms preferred for data envelope content encryption versus asymmetric? Because they're faster. I don't waste my time, dude. And why is authentication so important to security? Because if you don't know who I am, how are you going to secure anything? Right? And all right, for another talk, we're going to get into some problems with the root CA. So I'll save it, but basically right now, if I get you to click on this cat video, you will then install my evil CA. All root CAs are self-signed. If any one of these is bad, if we made these like Bitcoin miners, it would not be perfect, but you'd have to poison 51% of them. Right? So it'll be a lot harder. So maybe that's the fix. I don't know. There's a lot of people working on things. But let's just remember, we use PKI, public key infrastructure, to manage these asymmetric keys. That traditionally, in RSA, we need to move away. Please use elliptical curve. It's so much stronger. And when quantum comes out, this will be ready. Public keys that you get from the public, they're in the certificate. They're there to, if I want to make sure that only Bob can read the message, I'll use Bob's public key that I got from the certificate, and I'll encrypt the data encryption key with that. But I could also decrypt his signature. Go, oh, that must have been Bob. Right? Private keys are the reverse, and you never share them. And what about if you never share them? How do you back them up? And they say if you don't maintain your Bitcoin keys, it's not your Bitcoin. All right. So our goal always at InterNetwork Defense is to help everyone, the Federation. And if you enjoyed this, you can click like and join my channel. And of course, I'd love to see you in one of my classes. All right. Thank you very much. May you all live long and prosper.